Hi everyone and welcome to Bridge of Orchy, which is in the Scottish Highlands. It's bitterly cold today, it really is. Why have I come here? Well, I've come here to leave. And I'll explain to you in a few moments once we get up to the path. Well, you may be wondering what I'm up to. I'm actually on the remains of a former military road built by General Wade back in the 18th century. It now forms part of the West Highland Way, which is one of the UK's premier long-distance walking trails and probably Scotland's #1. When it comes to scenery, it's definitely #1. I'm here because I'm not walking the full length of the West Highland Way. That's about, from memory, about 197 kilometres. Not walking that today, no. I'm walking about 10. And I'm walking from the station up there at Bridge of Orchy down to Tyndrum. And why am I doing that? Well, I'm going to have a look at a very large horseshoe. Sorry, I'm just trying to avoid a very large frozen puddle here. Oh yeah. Yeah, a very large horseshoe. And I'll explain to you what that is all about once we get closer. In the meantime, I'm enjoying the scenery, enjoying the fresh air in my lungs. Look at this scenery here. Absolutely magnificent. I tell you what, it's cold as well. I checked the weather report this morning and it was supposed to have been 0 or +1 Celsius. But down at Bridge of Orchy, I can assure you it was a lot colder than that. It must have been a good -5, -6. It was decidedly chilly down there. Right, enough of the talking and a bit more walking. I'll explain to you what the big horseshoe is about once we get further down the track here. That up there is Beinn Doran, and it is 1,075 metres or 3,530 feet high. If I think it's cold here, I can imagine what it must be like on the summit. A couple of guys are going to find out because they left the trail about 10-15 minutes ago and they're heading up to the summit. I think the scenery up there would be absolutely magnificent. You'd have to be very prepared because the weather here in Scotland can change very quickly and I wouldn't want to be stranded on the top of that mountain ill-equipped. Puddles of solid ice. Carefully does it. So what's the story with this huge horseshoe? Well, back in the day they were building this railway line here from Glasgow to Fort William on the west coast of Scotland. And they were following the valley here and they were keeping to a certain elevation following the contours of the hill. Unfortunately for them, there's another valley which juts out. And they had two options. They either built a very expensive but very graceful Victorian arch viaduct, or they went for the cheaper option and skirted around the valley using a big horseshoe curve. And that's the one they've done. There are two bridges on it, and if my timing is correct, yep, we should be there to see a train cross it. Now, whenever I do these adventures, I always do a bit of research beforehand, and you'll like this one. I was looking on Google Satellite, and this is what I found. You can clearly see the horseshoe curve, but you can also see an aircraft flying overhead as well, which I think is really cool. But being the sad person what I am, I tried to work out which airline it was. And I have actually given up because I can't work it out. However, I am pretty convinced it was flying from Vancouver, San Francisco or Los Angeles, heading for Eastern Europe. Because anything heading for London or Paris either flies over northern England or Prestwick airspace, which is south of Glasgow. We are about 50 miles north of Glasgow, which means it was going further than Central Europe. I'm pretty sure it was going to Warsaw, Budapest, Bucharest. It wasn't even going as far as the Gulf states or even Istanbul because they fly completely north of Scotland. So there you go. If you can identify the aircraft, let me know. I've got a hunch it might be some sort of Airbus because they have kind of a grey wing area. But apart from that, I'm totally useless when it comes to identifying aircraft. Any information you can suggest, note below. Right, I can see one of those bridges already. And we've got about 40 minutes before the train's due. A cattle traffic jam. That's the West Highland Way, and that's the way we will be going. But to look at our bridge, we're going that way. Well, there's been a spanner in the works there. I was walking towards one of the bridges and I heard a vehicle behind me, so I decided to stand to the side and let it pass, but it stopped. And it was a white pickup truck. Inside were two police officers. And they asked me, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm just going for a walk, West Highland Way, take a picture of a train crossing the bridge, then I'll be heading to Tyndrum." "You're not allowed up there." I said, "I thought we had access right away." "Yeah, but at the moment it's off limits." He wouldn't explain why it was off limits. They just said it was off limits. So, I'm not able to get up to the bridge. But I'm going to look to see if there's any other way I can photograph it. I don't think there is. This is a serious disappointment. Right, I found a sneaky little place from where to film the bridge when the train crosses in about 25 minutes. So I'll just keep a low profile until then. Well guys, that wasn't quite the image that I had in my head as to what I'd be filming today for you. But under the circumstances, it's the best I could do. Gives you an idea of one of the bridges anyway. Right, Tyndrum is in that direction and it's about 4.5 kilometres away. Let's get walking. This section of track is so icy. It's funny, but my biggest fear of doing this part of the West Highland Way was actually deep snow. I was looking at webcams and I knew there was a snowfall here, I just wasn't sure how deep it was. But the big threat here is ice. I don't think there's a lot of people walking on this. No one would be stupid enough to walk this in the middle of winter, apart from me. But I think there's been a lot of thawing and refreezing, and thawing and refreezing. And it's like an ice rink. And I guess walking along while talking into a camera on a selfie stick probably isn't the safest thing to do. So I'm going to put the camera away until I get away from this very nasty piece of track. I gave up trying to walk along the West Highland Way. It was just far too icy, treacherous and actually quite dangerous in places. One wrong step and you could go off the side. So I'm walking along the A82, which some people might suggest isn't a safer option. But at least I'm not going to slide to my death. I just have to look out for cars. And as you can tell, there's not many. I just found a track which leads back onto the West Highland Way, so I thought I would give it a second chance. Absolutely no chance. It's ice all the way. So I'm going to risk it and I'm going to walk down the A82 back to Tyndrum. I've noticed other footprints here, so I'm obviously not the only person who's tried to walk part of the West Highland Way and has given up because of the ice. I've got about 2 kilometres to walk, it's not too bad, and at the bottom of this hill, before I get to the station, there's a place called the Green Welly Shop. Now I've already checked and it is closed due to COVID-19 restrictions, but they have a small cafe which is open for takeaways. So I've got my heart set on a nice big hot cup of coffee and a pie. I'll see you at the Green Welly. Hopefully. One coffee, one sausage roll. I'm sorted. Right, I've got 50 minutes to get to the station to get my train, but in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed this little winter adventure. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.